Oh, now we're recording. Okay, there we go.
Hooray!
Yay, we're recording. All right. Oh
It's like
shit,
we're a
where's the
real
intro?
podcast.
Where is the intro? I wrote this whole intro and now I can't find it.
Oh, I should probably
Okay.
pull
All
your
right,
notes.
edit it out. All right. What is up, guys? Welcome to Mythic Reality, the show where we discuss mythological beings, creatures, and places, and how they might not actually be mythical at all. I'm your host, I'm your host, Todd Petrella, a longtime lover of all things magical and mythological. I'm joined now by my good friend, Mitch Taylor. Tell the audience about yourself, Mitch.
Hi, I'm Mitch Taylor. I do software development, and I also like mythical stuff. And I'm here to shoot the shit about dragons.
We're going to shoot the shit about dragon. Do you like dragons, Mitch?
I'm. You could say I'm a fan.
All right, good, because you're going to love it when I'm dragging these facts across your dome.
Oh hell yeah!
All right, so
Drag me, daddy.
well, I guess we should start off with what a dragon actually is. If you don't know what a dragon is, I honestly feel like you should get out more. But this is a dragon. It's a winged creature, usually depicted as a lizard. Sometimes they have 4 legs, sometimes they have 2 legs. But when it comes to dragons, they have wings, they breathe fire, and they look like big ass lizards.
I've got my consultant too.
Oh, look at that! Who's that? Is that Big Ben?
It's a dragon.
That's a dragon. That right there. That's a fluffy dragon. And she might look like a cat, but trust me, I know that's a dragon.
It certainly spits fire.
She does. She has an attitude like fire. Dragons. So like, I think that's a good starting point for this podcast because dragons are like all over the world. They are depicted by various cultures from like Europe to Asia, even over here in the Americas, we have depictions of dragons. But apparently they're mythological beings, or they aren't real. So like, if these things aren't real, then why are there so many similar depictions of these flying reptilian creatures all over the world? What do you think?
So I think that it's really neat that there's all these different depictions of what is considered the same creature. I think there could maybe be some kind of like lost in translation sort of thing, where like, something that might just be like a sky serpent, like there's not a word for that in another language. So they're like, oh, like you mean like a dragon? And like, we're kind of getting these, the same name for a lot of like different creatures.
Interesting.
If these were to actually exist, some of the depictions are really different from other depictions. So like, I don't think that they would all be the same creature.
Right. And that's why there's different types of dragons. Like there's wyverns, which there's wyverns, which are like they're 2-legged dragons, and they don't have front arms. Their wings are their front arms. There's worms, which is what the Asian dragons are depicted as. So yeah, that's actually a good point. So they could be lost in translation. Like, oh, here's this flying snake through the air, but they don't have the word for flying snake in this culture, so they're like, oh, like a dragon.
Serpent.
Yeah, the flying serpent.
You said something a second ago that piqued my interest. You said that there's like American like depictions of dragons. Or
Quetzalcoatl, the main god of the. So I know there's the Mayans, I know there's the Incas, I know there's.
We literally talked about this before. You didn't look it up which one it was.
Yeah, we did talk about this. But yeah, I don't know if it falls under Mayan, Incan, or Aztec, because I know they're like all kind of the same, but like at different periods of time. Yeah. But as far as I understand, Quetzalcoatl, it literally means the feathered serpent, which is actually a great segue into the theory of why dragons could actually be real creatures instead of mythological creatures like we're all led to believe. So for this theory, I heard about it from Forrest Galante, a renowned wildlife biologist who's best known for his show Extinct or Alive on Animal Planet, where pretty much he went around the world and found creatures that were previously deemed extinct, which that's the most badass thing you could do. Like that thing's not like that thing's dead. That thing's exist. No, fuck. Blah, blah, blah. That thing is extinct. And Forrest Galante is like, no, it's not. I'm going to go find it. And that's exactly what he did. So he personally doesn't believe this theory because he's a scientist, he's very practical, and he doesn't think there's any data that supports it. He thinks it's all human exaggeration and embellishment. But what I learned from him is that the theory goes is that dragons are actually a lot like dinosaurs in the fact that they're actually avian creatures as opposed to being reptilian. So what that means is that they're more bird-like than they are lizard-like, essentially.
I think
And
that
so why?
makes sense for like sightings. Like I would say like for example, you know how like a albatross is like a huge seabird.
Yeah,
Like if I had never seen one of those before, like I'd be pretty worried, and I would want to
right.
like go back and tell all my people, like, guys, here's something that we got to really be stressed out about down by the
Yeah,
coast.
the moai eagle. I mean, there's I don't know any specific ones. I think it's the moai eagle. There's also the harpy eagle, I believe. But like these birds are huge, like with like 12-foot wingspans,
Mhm.
just crazy big.
And if
And
you see that from far enough away, you've never seen one before, you have no frame of reference for how
yeah,
big that creature
exactly.
is. So you're like, I don't know if this is 50 feet away from me or like a mile away from me, but like from where I'm standing, it's huge, and that's all I'm worried about.
Exactly. And that thing is a threat to me in my village.
Yeah.
And it's also I think it's important to point out because I'm looking at us now, we're both wearing glasses. Back then, like glasses have only been around for like 200 years, if I'm being
I was like,
generous.
yeah, what's your point? You saying we're nerds?
Yeah. Well, actually, sir.
Actually, I got facts about dragons.
No, yeah, glasses. As far as I'm aware, have only been around for like 200 years. So
Mhm.
back then, people didn't wear glasses. People had bad eyesight. So who the fuck knows what they were actually looking at? So they
Yeah,
could have seen one of these big ass birds, but like didn't realize how far away it was. So it probably could have been like closer or further. And therefore that led to them being like, this thing is fucking huge. We need to do something about it.
yeah. They could like having bad vision might not have been something that they could like explain or understand back
Right.
then. They could just be like, oh well, like he's bad at hunting, and we don't really know why.
The deer was
But
standing right in front
hey,
of him, but he shot it
he
into
said
the
there's a
tree all the way
dragon,
over
and he seems like a cool guy to me, so I'm worried.
there. But so yeah, leading back to this theory about how dragons could be bird-like as opposed to lizard-like, if they're as large as we're led to believe, if they're able to fly, that would have to mean that they would have hollow and lightweight bones, which is how birds essentially fly today. There's no way something that size, especially with like the big ass eagles that do exist, there's no way they could like lift themselves off the ground and fly if their bones were not hollow. And because birds do have hollow bones, that means that they don't fossilize well, so that when they die, there is nothing left behind for too long because eventually their bones will break down and blow off into the wind and the cycle of life continues. Which also that made me realize, which when you're watching these medieval movies or seeing these depictions of dragons, it's like how could anybody kill one of these things? How could even a group of people kill these things if they're humongous, they breathe fire, they can swallow a person whole? If their bones are hollow and lightweight, that means they're incredibly fragile. So like you could like shoulder tackle a dragon and take it out.
Or a well placed ballista shot might be able to do it.
Exactly. Um, and that also makes me realize that birds, as I said before, wyverns are the type of dragon that stands on two legs and its arms are its wings. All birds then are essentially wyverns.
Yeah, there's a lot of like prehistoric birds are kind of pictured like that, where like a few of them in like artist depictions of what their skeletons what would have looked like if they still had their flesh and skin on them, shows them kind of like sitting on like knuckles on the ends of
Mm-hmm.
their wings.
Mm-hmm. Exactly
Uh,
like they do in Skyrim.
yeah, so it would make a lot of sense for like that bone structure to kind of still be around evolution wise.
Right. Well, if you look at the evolutionary tree of life, like I think I'm pulling this out of my memory from ninth grade biology. But if I remember correctly, it was like on that evolutionary tree of life, birds and reptiles were the oldest branch, if you will. And therefore, like, I remember looking at these bones and it was like, yeah, this is a reptile bone structure. This is a bird's bone structure. The only difference is that birds have like this little hook thing on their arms or what on their wings, I guess.
Yeah.
But again, I'm pulling that from my 9th grade memory, and I've smoked a lot of weed since then. So,
so they came from like similar sources, like evolution wise.
Yeah, essentially. Okay. I mean, everything started out as like a single cell organism, moved to a multi-cell organism, but like in terms of like the generalized classifications that we have now, birds and reptiles were there before mammals, before fish. Well, I guess fish were there first, but what I'm trying to say is birds and reptiles are old as hell.
So there is a prehistoric bird. It's actually called like Quetzalcoatlus or something
Quetzalcoatlus.
Like that. Yep. Yeah, and it looks a lot like what I'm kind of picturing in my head here.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'll put a picture up when I edit this.
Oh, sweet. Okay. Yeah, I'm struggling to like think of how something like that could survive like an ice age period. And like and at least a few of them still be around to get seen by early humans, because like obviously you would see that and think it's a dragon if you had no context, but for something like that to survive the ice age, I think is like insane and impossible, because something that big would need a big diet to support it, and there wasn't a lot of food around, which is why most of the things died off during that period.
Right. Well, speaking of the ice age, this is a completely different like topic. This is an episode we will cover on this podcast, so stay tuned for that. But apparently during the ice age, there's a lot of new evidence that suggests that the ice age ended when a meteor smacked into the earth, or clusters of meteors smacked into the earth, melted all the ice and flooded everything. And that potentially could be what wiped out, like, say Quetzalcoatlus did survive past like the normal dinosaurs, and then it could have died from this meteor impact. They call it the Younger Dryas impact theory, or impact hypothesis.
Does that theory include like the start of the ice age being caused by a meteor? Because wasn't that the original thing? Like a big meteor hit Earth, created Gulf of Mexico, and kind of cast a lot of like smoke and like dust up into the atmosphere, which blocked out the sun.
We're talking, I don't know the geological time scale of everything, but I think the ice age ended as a result of the Younger Dryas impact theory.
Okay.
So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
I think it does. Yeah. So I think what I was thinking still stands, that it's kind of not plausible that a prehistoric bird could have made it through all of that and come out on the other end at the same time as early humans starting to exist.
Right.
Especially early humans with like written history. Like written history does not go that far back. So we definitely don't have anything from like caveman time still written down nowadays.
Right. And for all we know, it goes back to we could do an episode on the Kraken going forward, because it comes back to that idea of like what would be left behind, like, and like as I stated earlier, like hollow, or birds having like hollow and lightweight bones, they don't fossilize well. They don't fossilize at all, really.
Right, yeah.
So like, who knows, like in the water, what early humans were looking at, because like we don't know if the squids that are around today are the biggest squids to ever have existed, because they're all just soft tissue.
And we do have some pretty big ones nowadays.
Yeah.
Giant squids are, as the name implies.
It's like we had the giant squid, and we were like, that's the biggest thing in the ocean. Nope, now we got the colossal squid. But anyways, let's get back to dragons.
Yeah.
I want to say, so like if dragons were just birds, really big birds that somebody saw, and like maybe they had poor eyesight, or like they didn't know what it was at all, that could explain why they're as big as they were. But let's say like dragons really were just like this big, like the size of an eagle, maybe. Like over time, stories would have been passed down from generation to generation, and human nature is to embellish and exaggerate. So that essentially led to their massive size and their grandeur. But then going off of that, ancient people could have unearthed dinosaur bones and had no idea what the hell it was.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, the Egyptians were around for so long that like they had, historians looking at their own stuff from like
Yeah,
2,000 years
exactly.
before. Like so I'm sure like plenty of societies and early cultures could have definitely found bones and been like, this is some crazy stuff, and maybe not like properly documented it.
Yeah, it was like for like they didn't know dinosaurs existed, which that's actually there's an episode I want to do on that regarding Amit the Devourer, and that's honestly what's like sparked the idea for this whole podcast. But we'll talk about that when it's time to talk about that.
Yeah, we're spitballing a lot of episode
Oh man,
ideas.
I'm just so excited, bro. I just
A lot
so
of
much
cool
shit I
stuff
want to
happening on
talk
this
about.
little rock in space we got here.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, if you didn't know what the hell it was, you're obviously going to look at it like it's a real thing. So you'd
Yeah.
put it in the context of what you would understand. So I wonder how much of a connection there was between these big bones to these giant, perceptionally giant creatures flying in the sky. Who knows? Well, we weren't around then, and they're not around anymore to tell us. So.
Yeah, I mean, and then they probably didn't like, back in earlier civilizations didn't have the community that paleontologists have now to bounce ideas off of and to say like, oh, like we found this like giant bone and like we don't know what it goes to, and like nowadays, they can communicate with other paleontologists and they can be like, oh, like that's from this creature. It's crazy that you found one that far away. Like let's write that down.
We didn't think their range spanned that far. Yeah.
But like like you're saying back then, they didn't have the context and they probably found this really big bone and like, drew some pretty dire conclusions about it. They're like, oh man, like we're toast if one of these things shows up.
Yeah, like imagine finding like a T-Rex skull. Just you're digging away and you find a T-Rex skull. What are you gonna?
They didn't have carbon dating, so like they would see that and be like, hey, humans have bones and this bone is here. As far as I know, like this thing still exists.
Yeah, exactly.
Terrifying.
So like, not all dragons are fire-breathing creatures, but in the terms of where do you think the whole idea of fire breathing came from?
I think fire breathing could have kind of just been tacked on as another like embellishment thing. Like if you were to in medieval times encounter some sort of like creature that you're not familiar with and you like got scared and ran from it, the story that you tell your pals when you get back to town is not going to be the story that happened. It's going to be like, look, no, I ran because this thing was, let's see, 20 feet tall and let's see, it spit fire and let's see what else, and it could fly.
Yeah, like, and every time you tell it, it's gonna the dragon or whatever it is going to get a little bit bigger every time.
21 feet tall now. It's 22 feet tall now.
Yeah. What I think though, and like that theory that I mentioned earlier, that I don't know the origin of that theory. I heard about it from Forrest Galante. It didn't cover the fire, as far as I'm aware, it didn't cover the aspect of fire breathing whatsoever. So I personally think that the idea of fire breathing could actually have been venom, because lizards, insects, and even some birds, it's not necessarily venom in terms of the birds, but lizards and insects, or reptiles and insects, do actually spit venom. Like the bombardier beetle, the spitting cobra, that the name implies, it spits venom. But from what we know about venom, when you get bit by something that is venomous, that it burns, it corrodes your skin, it corrodes your flesh. And again, going back to the idea of human exaggeration, if you get bit by something or you get venom spit at you and it lands on your skin starts to burn, you're going to say it's fire breathing, or exaggeration is going to lead to fire breathing. Do you know what a kenning is?
No.
A kenning is an Old Norse thing, or a Norse poetic thing, or it might be the Anglo-Saxon. I don't know the etymology of the word, but a kenning is essentially like using two words to describe like another thing. Like the Vikings, they would call their boats oar steeds.
Like you mean like something that you don't have like a word for, like just saying
maybe,
like, well, it's kind of like this and this.
Maybe I think it was more of like a poetic art form that they use kennings for. Like personally, what I like to, my favorite kenning is the porcelain throne. I call that the toilet.
Okay, that's a good modern example of what you mean.
Exactly. So breath of fire is a kenning. I feel like that could be a pretty good kenning for venom.
Sure. And I could definitely see somebody like thinking that they got fire breathed on them. If you're in like a high stress, like um, adrenaline pumping sort of situation, your brain isn't like probably recording memories in the most focused way as it would if you had been like calm and relaxed about the situation. If you encountered some kind of weird creature you've never seen before, it's like in the underbrush, you catch it out of the corner of your eye, it spits something at you, your arm burns now. You like
Exactly.
run back to your village. Your mind's racing with what the hell just happened to me. I
Yeah.
could definitely see them being like, I don't know, like I got my skin burnt off, so
Yeah.
obviously it
Or
was
what if
fire.
like say like you live in like a European medieval village, and like say you got attacked, your village is on fire, and there just happens to be one of these venomous or venom spitting creatures that happens to inhabit the same area that your village is in.
Yeah. And I
So
also can't imagine that like they had that much of a concept for what like an acid is back then. Like,
yeah,
and we go through school and we learn about like acid base reactions, like
yeah,
lots of cleaning chemicals are like acidic and stuff like that. But like, back in that time they had fire, but they probably didn't have a lot of like acidic things. And if they did, they might have not had like the concept for that.
yeah.
Uh, so I could definitely see somebody like getting a corrosive liquid on them and drawing the conclusion that it was liquid fire or something.
Exactly. Or like yeah, they probably could be like liquid fire. That's a great way to put it. I feel like that's even better than breath of fire, truthfully.
Yeah,
And I
liquid
think the
fire would be a
idea
canon,
the idea of the fire breathing, like I said, every time you tell the story, it's going to get a little bit different. Dragon's going to get a little bit bigger. So now it went from spitting liquid fire at me to this thing is actually
right?
um
Yeah,
like back to like so like how could that relate to like birds and everything? Like obviously we know snakes, lizards, Komodo dragons. If you don't know, Komodo dragons are which is an example of a real life dragon, I guess you could say. They have one of the most toxic bites out there. Like if you get bit by one of those, it's like so many different types of bacteria
hmm
going into your bloodstream that you're beat
they
essentially.
also have like really dirty mouths too, don't they?
Yeah,
Isn't that like one of their things? Is that like they just kind of infect you with a bunch of crap?
yeah, pretty much. It's
Yeah,
like, all right, we cured you of this, but you could have like 30 other things going on.
they give you like 10d10 poison damage with like one bite.
10d10 poison damage, but then 10d10 poison psychic damage.
Yeah.
Um, but in terms of birds that spit venom, uh, there's the Eurasian roller, which I think that being Eurasian is a lot of like that's good fodder for this theory or to like merit for the theory
Mhm.
because Europe and Asia are where these ideas of dragons mainly come from. So the fact that this bird particularly is the Eurasian roller, I think that holds a lot of merit. But what they're about is that they eat grasshoppers, which grasshoppers have their own chemical cocktail inside of them that's meant to deter other predators from eating them. But the Eurasian roller is like, I love that. Let me get that. So they eat grasshoppers, no problem. And the toxins that the grasshopper had in its body, now the roller has in its body, and it can vomit those chemicals as its own defense mechanism. And then
Disgusting.
the same can be said for like turkey vultures, which projectile vomit, and fulmar petrels, which spit an oily substance that they also get from their own food. They can spit it up to 6 feet, and it's been known to kill eagles via like freezing them to death. Like I don't know how that works. I'm not an ornithologist, or causing them to drown, which I guess that means like the eagle's flying over water, it gets hit by the spray of the petrol, and then it crashes into the water and it can't get out. And I wonder if you could look at that one as ice breath in a way.
Yeah, there's like in folklore, the dragons aren't always exclusively fire breathing, so that
Yeah,
could be like somebody could hear a story about that and like think back about their stories that they already have about dragons and be like, oh, these got to be the same thing. It's just a different kind of dragon.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
I wonder how that
I
would
don't
like
have
come.
the context.
Yeah, I wonder how that would come about because like a petrel is like that big, maybe. I don't know. I don't know how big petrels are, but
It's got to be like somebody sees it out of the corner of their eye, like I was talking about earlier, and they're like they just draw the most dire conclusion that they can think
mhm.
of.
Yeah. What is it about humans and everything? It has to be worse than it actually is.
Because nobody wants to like be thought of like a baby. Like
Yeah.
they're like, no, no, listen, I only ran because I saw it fire this gouts of ice breath up into the air. It knocked an eagle out of the sky, this 10-foot long eagle.
Yeah.
Crashed into the
This
water and drowned.
majestic creature that we based our whole culture on, and this thing killed it.
I barely escaped with my life.
Look, I got burns on my arm from it. It
I got
breathed
burns on my
fire
arm.
on me.
Stamping out their torch that they burn themselves with.
I wonder how many people did burn themselves to really sell the story. So my because we live in the time period that we do, I do have a source for these birds that vomit toxic projectile substances. That came from whoa! Check out these 12 animals that spit acid from A to Z animals.com. So yeah, so who the fuck knows if dragons were real? Who knows if they were reptiles? Who knows if they were birds? But I found some historical accounts that I have found historical accounts of dragons on this website called Artistrophy. I think that's how you pronounce that. Do you have the doc up?
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at some of those, and I guess we can discuss them. I think there's 10 here. We don't have to read all of them, but I think we could I feel like we should read some of these and talk about what we think, what they could actually have encountered if it was not a dragon.
Alexander the Great saw a dragon?
Yeah.
Oh.
So Alexander the Great sees a dragon in 330 BC. Alexander the Great reportedly saw a dragon while invading India. It was described as a hissing creature living in a cave, which the local people worshipped as a god. As his army passed by the cavern, the dragon hissed and snorted furiously, terrifying them all. Although they could not see the rest of the body, for only the head was visible outside the cave, the dragon reportedly measured 70 cubits long, which is about 100 feet. Its eyes were large, about the size of a round Macedonian shield. What do you think of that?
I think that it would especially be one of those cases where they don't want to seem like babies for running away, since where these are probably like soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
So they have all the more reason to, kind of want to embellish here.
Right. Fair enough.
Think that could have been like maybe a bear or something like growling at them. I'm not that familiar with the local fauna of India, but I did see another story in here about more dragon sightings in India. One of them about marsh dragons. Do you know if there's crocodiles or alligators in India? That was the first thing that I thought of when I saw that it said there's marsh dragons 45 feet long. I mean, I can't remember if it's crocodiles or alligators. I know one of them has doesn't have a death gene, kind of like lobsters, how like they'll just keep eating and growing until they can't support their own size anymore, and that's when they die. They don't die of like old age.
Really? Huh,
Yeah,
I never heard about that actually.
Oh, you didn't? Yeah, that's
No,
one of my favorite
that's news to
facts
me.
about either alligators or crocodiles. One of those like big reptiles doesn't have a death gene, similar to lobsters. Lobsters will just keep growing and eating until they get
they
too
won't.
large to support their own size with the amount of food that they can consume in a day.
So they let it they're immortal until their environment can't support them. Is that what you're saying? Essentially.
Yeah. Yep. Or until they get eaten or hunted or whatever.
That is very interesting. Wow.
That's why like there's some accounts of lobsters being like really huge because they'll find like an excellent feeding ground and just kind of camp there until they get to like, a couple feet long.
That's terrifying. I don't want to go. I already didn't want to go in the ocean. Now I really don't want to go in the ocean now. That's insane. Okay.
But
awesome.
I could see like Like I think there's a story that of a reptile, either a crocodile or an alligator or something that was, I think, in a sewer, and was getting a lot of food like in that sewer, and was like able to keep growing because of that, and it got to a really big size. And the big alligator from Peter Pan is
Hmm,
based on that. It's a like
really
yeah,
interesting.
that's the inspiration for that, and that's why that um, the alligator in Peter Pan so like huge.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's too far fetched because we know that crocodilians were around during the time of the dinosaurs. Like they are perfect killing machines.
Yeah,
Essentially, how they were surviving back then is how they were surviving today. So that like fuck evolution. They figured out that the best way for them to survive is to like go underneath something, grab it, and body slam it into the ground as hard as they can, and then roll with it, as an alligator does or a crocodile does.
I've
They
got
figured out that's the best way, and it's worked for millions of years. So
I've got
honestly, I
a
feel like
little
that
quick update here. Yeah, it's called a marsh crocodile in India. There are definitely crocodiles in their marshes there.
interesting. Okay, so that's the Dragons of India one.
I feel like it. It doesn't say anything about them breathing fire in this
Right.
story. It says they had no crest on top of its head. That's a crocodile, man. That's not a dragon at all.
Yeah. Awesome. I mean, crocodiles are lizards, so
Debunked. On to the next one.
now on to the next one. Um, I want to. There was something I wanted to say about the Alexander the Great one, but I don't remember what that is now, unfortunately.
Related to its size, it says it's 100 feet long. Is it related to its size or it hiding in a
Yes, it was
cave?
actually about that.
Okay.
Um, so I'm bringing up my man Forrest Galante again. And he talked about that on his podcast called The Wild Times. And if you're into wildlife like I am, go watch The Wild Times, go listen to it. It's a great wildlife podcast. It's just they're sponsored by Fat Tire, which is my favorite beer. Hopefully we can
Mhm.
get sponsored by Fat Tire one day. That'd be pretty dope. Um, but yeah, if you like wildlife, if you like dudes just hanging out and talking about wildlife, that's the podcast for you. It's called The Wild Times with Forrest Galante. Go check it out. Anyways, I don't know what episode it was, but he talked about how, and I believe this happened in the Congo, and I believe it happened during the 60s, the 50s or the 60s, where these helicopter pilots were flying just above the trees in the Congo, and they saw a snake that was so large that it lunged at them in the helicopter. And obviously, that sounds like a made up, exaggerated story. But apparently it had like they got pictures of it. I don't know if the pictures were doctored. It didn't look as crazy as I thought it would when I looked at them. I'll maybe see if I can put some of those up here. But the like I said, the snake lunged at them, and then that was it. And then so Forrest Galante, being the adventurous that he is, he said that he went looking for it himself when he happened to be in the Congo, probably shooting an episode of Extinct or Alive or just filming something. Um, and he said that like he asked the local people about it, and they said, "Yeah, it's real. We've seen it. It's like we don't go into the woods because of it, or the forest because of it, jungle, whatever they have over there." And so he ended up finding somebody who took him to who was willing to take him and his, I think he was with his wife or his girlfriend, I don't know. I just know he was with a couple of people, and they found somebody that was willing to take them to the cave where it was believed that this giant snake lived. And pretty much he there it was in the cave was inhabited by all these bats, so much so that he said like to get to it he had to go nipples deep into bat shit. Which batshit has a scientific word. I just don't remember what that word
It's
is.
like guano or something, I think.
Yeah, something like that. And he was he climbed up the side of the wall because he saw like this like ledge, and so he ended up climbing the wall to get a better view at what was on the ledge. And he said he saw the largest snake skin that he had ever seen, way bigger than any snake skin he had ever seen before. And at that moment was like one of the very few moments that he ever felt fear. And the moment he saw the skin, he was like, I have to get out of here.
Well, snakes like basically only have one move, and that's lunge at things.
Yeah.
So like I could definitely see like a snake doing a big lunge, and somebody catching it out of the corner of their eye and going like it was flying. So that could certainly explain a lot of the like flying serpent stories.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
don't think I could see it lunging at a helicopter though. That's like really big and really loud, and like
Well, that's
I'm
probably
almost
why it did
certain.
lunge at it. It
I'm
probably
almost
was like,
certain
what is this
it
loud
would
thing
scare
coming
the
to?
hell, or it would scare the snake.
I
And
don't know. Maybe
maybe it lunged away from them, like, oh, what the hell is this? I gotta get
I
away
don't
from
know.
it.
Maybe it was trying to defend. It was like, what the hell is this? And so it lunged at the thing that it thought was the disturbance. But yeah, that could be a dragon itself. And one of these historical accounts is about dragons in the Congo. Um, it says the Harleian collection of travels is a collection of voyages, travels, journals, and discoveries from various writers, which have been recorded in their authentic voices. Volume 2 contains an account of dragons in the Kingdom of Congo, reported by 16th century Italian explorer Filippo Pigafetta. Pigafetta described creatures that were big as rams, had wings like bats, long tails, and jaws with several rows of teeth. Their skin, which was blue and green in color, had not so much as scales, but rather the impression of them. These creatures had 2 feet only, located on the upper region of their trunks. So yeah, that sounds like a serpent to me, but like with it sounds
Sounds
like an Asian
wild.
dragon, like a worm, essentially.
Yeah. There's another
Um,
funny one on here. I wanted to talk about the Filey dragon near the bottom.
near the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay.
This like Coast Guard guy saw some kind of creature. It rose up to 8 feet when he saw it. It growled at him. He said his mouth was a foot wide, eyes as large as saucers again. It said it growled and moved away. Its tailless black body was 30 feet long, and it had 2 huge humps on the back. The legs were short and had flippers for feet. The dragon rolled from side to side and vanished into the sea. That was not a dragon.
That's the Loch Ness Monster, dude.
That's like a leopard seal or something.
That was 100% the Loch Ness Monster.
I think it was one of those like big ass sea lions.
It could be, or like like an elephant seal.
Yeah. For him, like to see one of those, like it says it was at night and he had a flashlight. That's like a limited cone of vision.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard the noises those things make, but it certainly sounds like a monster.
There was this video I saw where like these dog. It almost broke my heart because I thought this dog just got a chunk taken out of it. But it was like these 3 dogs were barking at this elephant seal, and it went or something.
Yeah,
like,
terrifying.
Yeah, it was crazy. But so of the 3 historical accounts of dragons here, there's like 10 or 12 altogether, but we only went over a few. What do you make of it? Do you think they were all just seeing different dragon-like creatures that they're just lumping into this group of dragons, or do you think they were actually seeing something that is no longer around today?
Yeah, dog, I'm a skeptic.
Yeah, I know, which is exactly why I wanted you on this podcast. You got that practical scientific side to it, where I'm like, magic, bitch, it's magic.
I ain't seeing no accounts of dragons here. yeah, I like magic. I'm like in the process of planning my next D&D campaign. It's gonna be Harry Potter themed, so it's I'm a fan of magic over here.
But like when it comes to is magic real? What would you say?
Nah.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas I'm
sure would like for it to be.
Maybe. Yeah, you'd like it to be just as much as I would be, but you're definitely like, nah, it's not real. Or I'm like, it could be real.
Nah, sorry, guys.
Considering you married a witch, dog.
Actually, she does have a pretty good track record of her spells working. So.
Yes, sir. There you go. Yeah, there was one more thing I wanted to say, which I wanted to mention prior to going into the historical accounts, and I think it gives a lot of merit to why the Asian dragons are these long serpentine creatures.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what the golden tree snake is?
No, but I saw the word golden tree snake in your notes.
All right, yeah, the golden tree snake is it's an Asian snake. It's found, I believe, and it said South and Southeast Asia.
Is it one of those big lunging guys?
It's not a big lunging guy, but it's a type of flying reptile. But it doesn't actually fly. It
like
contorts
glides?
it contorts its body to create lift, and it glides on like wind currents and stuff. But it looks like it's slithering through the air. So I don't know if there's other types of flying snakes like that. But that one's found in Asia, so that could be why Asian dragons are depicted the way they are.
I'm looking at one
maybe there's some over here in America, which is why Quetzalcoatl is what he is. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm looking at a video of one shooting through the air right now. It looks like a real fun guy. I'm a big fan of him.
Boom, boom. Just proved it right there. And you heard it here first, folks. Dragons are real.
Now I just need to see him spit some fire, and I'm in.
He's going to spit venom, not fire. You know that. You know better.
Yeah. We've been over this.
But for right now, that's all I have to say about dragons. We could put, as we find out more information, we can always revisit dragons in the future.
Yeah, we could dive in deeper into one of these, one specific account or something. Dive into this specific regional folklore surrounding this.
Dude, that would be exciting. Like, give me just the whole. Let me work. How do I get a job doing research? How do I get paid to do research?
You just need this podcast to blow up, and then you can.
Yeah, that we do. Is there anything else you have to say about dragons, my dear friend?
I got nothing else about dragons except that I want to meet one.
Me too. You and me both can agree on that. All right. Well, audience, I'm speaking to you guys now. What do you make of all this? What do you think? Do you think that dragons could have been real creatures at one point in time? Do you think that they're simply just exaggerations of things that already exist? Or do you think that both possibilities, like, yes, dragons are creatures that already exist, and that dragons are, in fact, real things that are now extinct?
Reach out to us and let us know.
Yeah, reach out to us. Let us know.
We need to make social media. I don't think we have one yet.
Oh, don't worry. Once I put up this episode, we'll have social media.
Okay.
All right. Let us know what you think, guys, and we will see you next time on Mythic Reality. Thank you for listening so much to the first episode of our podcast. Goodbye.
Bye.